Welcome to another edition of Portsmouth This Week. We've had some very special guests today and a topic that is getting a lot of mileage, and I'm referring to vaping and drugs and illicit things that our kids are picking up on. Our guest today, Rebecca Elwell. She's the director, let's see if I get this straight, of the Newport County Prevention Coalition. Am I close?
Correct. That's correct.
And Senator Jim Seveney, he's a Democrat from District 11 here in Portsmouth. Great to see both of you.
Nice to be here.
Okay, well, Rebecca, why don't you start with any of the history or background we should know about the NCRPC?
So the Newport County Prevention Coalition was established in 2017 when the state of Rhode Island, in order to consolidate the previous municipal coalitions, we created 7 regions. Newport County is one of the regions. The Newport County towns that had existing prevention coalitions focused on just for their own communities came together. Jim supported us and assisted us with the creation of a proposal to create the Newport County Prevention Coalition. So we are funded by the state as a regional coalition. All of the existing municipal coalitions are still in existence and sort of fall under the umbrella. The regionalization project was to sort of ease some of the contractual management at the state level, and also to sort of encourage and force the municipal coalitions to work together, sort of to bring synergy to the work that we were doing, kind of close up some of the gaps, eliminate some of the overlaps in the work that we were doing. So we are now housed at the Brown House here in Portsmouth. My office is there. I have 3 staff members who are also officed there. And over the past 3 years, we've seen our revenues increase because we've sought grant funding and have received additional funding from federal funds to address the opiate issue, as well as a more recent receipt of a grant to address underage drinking on Aquidneck Island.
I'm curious, Jim, how you're relatively new to the state Senate, and you serve on 3 committees, and you are bombarded with so many issues and opportunities. And is there any way you got steered into this project?
Steered, I don't know if that...
Well, what motivated you to go in that area?
You know, I've been interested in this, and that interest came from being on the town council in Portsmouth for a long time. So I've interacted for years from that perspective with the substance abuse prevention community, and they do good work. They're doing it underfunded. You know, you've got like Rebecca, you've got a cadre of professionals, you know, trained and educated in counseling and prevention stuff and all that. But there's a huge volunteer community that's helping to get all the work done, and my interest primarily is that these groups, a lot of their focus is on our school children, and I think that's where it needs to be. I've said for years, and I'll continue to say, if we can get the kids educated to understand what lies down a path like substance abuse, if we can get them to understand that's a bad path, we're less than a generation away from a fix to all of this stuff.
And we'll pay later.
Well, if we don't get it right, we'll
pay me now or pay me later, but you're going to end up with some kind of problems to.
So that's how I got involved with the group. In fact, all these state contracts, these were competitive solicitations. So the communities, led by Rebecca and Ray Davis, really had to work.
Yes, we've had Ray Davis on the program, and he looked rather tired. So that's changed or is changing. The competing for contracts? Is it more on an allocation basis now?
Well, they only wanted the 7 districts, the 7 regions, and so each one anyone could compete for. All you had to do was be able to meet the contractual requirements.
Rebecca, I know that you're short a replacement for for the whole district, right?
For the Portsmouth
Mr.
Prevention Coalition, their coalition coordinator, Corey Sylvia, has accepted another position. We really wish him well. He brought a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and energy and expertise to his role over the last 16 months. But he has moved on, so there is a vacancy in the leadership of the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition. On the Town of Portsmouth website is the job posting, if people are interested in looking at that. If they meet the requirements, we would certainly love to hear from people. I know that applications are coming in, and we will be interviewing for that leadership position very soon.
So you're getting some feedback from the community that this position is open, and that's good to know because these positions are so important for the coordination of the whole program. Jim, the legislative strategy for Title 16, what is that? Is that the funding source?
The legislative strategy is principally looking at funding, and as Rebecca said, the coalition has done a great job of applying for and receiving grants. But grants are here today, gone tomorrow kinds of things.
Indeed.
She's running an organization that has to persist over time.
Yep.
She's got to meet a payroll.
Yep.
One year it's fine because the grant's there, and the next year, you know. So that makes it difficult keeping qualified staff around as well, because everybody's paying attention to whether or not there's money next year for my services.
You've achieved wisdom, Senator.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm working on it. So the legislative strategy is to find some persisting funding sources, one of which already exists. We've just got to get the law fixed so that the traffic tribunal can actually execute it. And that's in Title 16. And Title 16 says, for every speeding ticket, every moving violation that the state issues and someone is found guilty of, there will be a $30 fee added onto that, whatever the cost of the ticket.
$30?
$30 times roughly between 35 and 40,000 citations every year.
Oh my.
So we're talking about upwards of a couple of $1 million a year. Now, we currently don't collect those because there's a flaw in the law, and we're trying to get that fixed. And that's one of the legislative thrusts, is to get that fixed so that the traffic tribunal can actually execute to it.
I had experience, you bring back some, I don't know if they're fond or unfond memories of when there was a big push for cutting back on smoking. The state came up with a penny or two on the cigarette tax, and it was supposed to go to the school department. First year it did. Second year it went down a little less, and then the third year it went down, and the fourth year they said, do it yourself. So I'm glad to hear this new proposal. Hopefully we'll hang in there. That is the speeding.
Well, we got to get it passed.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to work on that. And the other thing is a newer initiative, and this was actually brought up by the chief magistrate at the tribunal. If you're convicted of a DUI, right now there's a series of charges in addition to the fundamental penalty. Mm-hmm. There's a $200 charge that goes to the Department of Health to defray the costs of the testing. There's a $300 charge that goes right to the Rhode Island Highway Safety Fund. And there's also legislation out there that we're trying to get through that would add an additional $250 fee that would go straight to the Prevention Coalition community. There's two dimensions to this.
Yeah.
You know, there's the regions, the 7 regions around the state. which are very effective, and it's a really robust network of resources and capability to get out and talk to the kids, talk to the parents, get data right at the ground level with surveys and talking to people. The other dimension of this is the Student Assistance Counseling Program. We don't have all the schools covered, but the high schools and middle schools, we're trying to get student assistance counselors in the schools. And these people are important because it's a resource that a kid can go to talk to. They're not connected to the school administration. They're not going to report back to a child's parents.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's a counseling service that's right there in the school, available to a kid that's having any sort of a problem, from mental health issues, substance abuse, getting along with their peers, you name it. These student counselors are there, and they're all trained, and they're there just to have a place a kid can go to get something off their chest.
That's a very valuable resource.
These are the two areas, the coalitions and the student assistance counseling community, where this money is intended to go to support their continuing operations.
Can I chime in on that?
Yes, I was going to ask you the next question.
Just a point about all of this. What the legislation that Jim is talking about is so very important, because at current, the state of Rhode Island does not contribute state funds to prevention, neither for the coalitions nor for the student assistance programming. All of the money that comes to us through the state is actually federal funding that comes through the state to these entities for prevention.
I understand.
So, as Jim mentioned, that comes in the form of grants. Not consistent. You can't count on it from year to year. And if we are fortunate enough to get a 3-year grant or a 5-year federal grant, it's always, up for renegotiation should funding become decreased over time. So that's why this designation of continuous funds is really vital.
Oh, I having been in the business, I can just appreciate how important it is for you folks in your organization to have a Jim Seveney applauding in the background, and to have a steady fund and support. I mean, that's it. I'm curious, Rebecca, if you could share with us some of the things that you do, daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. What kinds of things do you sponsor and do to keep this program?
Sure. We work on a number of different strategies. And at the regional level, part of what I have the opportunity to do now is take a little step back, and I'm not working so closely with students. I'm not working so closely with individual communities and those issues, but to sort of take a broader view of what's happening across the region and statewide, taking a look at what the national trends are, so that we can be always sort of on top of that and in front of that. My work is a lot of relationship building, certainly relationship building with folks who can become our champions at the state level in the legislature, building relationships with our faith organizations locally, so across the region, so that we know families that rely on those faith organizations for support and leadership and guidance. Those faith leaders are well informed and connected. We make sure that we are advocating for the student assistance counselors across our region. In fact, we've just, through a federal underage drinking grant, we've been able to increase some student assistance programming in this on Aquidneck Island. We're really excited about that, because there's an inconsistency with the level of support for student assistance from one community to the other. Largely that's under their control because they pay for it. So my focus is really making sure that the municipal coalitions in each community have the resources, human resources as well as financial resources, to get their work done. And they are more personally connected with the youth in each community.
Do you have an opportunity to meet other coordinators from other districts?
Yes. Yes, we have a,
You
that's,
get together regularly?
yes, we do.
so that you
As
can
Jim mentioned,
share?
yeah, we have a really solid network. Many of us now who are regional directors sort of rose through the ranks. We started out as community coalition coordinators and have really dedicated our professional lives to this work. So we maintain a very strong network and work very closely with each other. So we do meet monthly. We meet monthly through our own choice to get together and share information, but we also meet through the Department of Behavioral Health, Developmental Disabilities and Hospitals.
Yeah.
That is our primary funding source for our state and federal grants. So we do meet with them, so that there's a lot of sharing going on, and the attempt is to make sure that everybody's education information is consistent. We don't want to leave gaps. We want to make sure that we're closing those gaps so that we're making a safety net around this topic statewide.
I hear you. Jim, for your part, do you have other supporters at the state level in the Senate and the legislature that are on board for this side of protection? And you're on the Special Legislation Committee. Is that where this will?
No, that's veterans and special legislation.
so that's be a different.
It's
But talk about support at the
well,
state
it
level.
comes there's lots of support up there. The committee chairs all support this. It's very difficult getting legislation through the process whenever there's money involved. Even in a case like this, I mean, there is no budgetary impact to these bills. This essentially becomes new money because it hasn't been collected in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, it isn't
I
being
hear you.
used for something different that would diminish some existing effort. It's new money, but it's still difficult. So we're still trying, and yes, there is a lot of support for this. Everybody understands the utility. Everybody appreciates between the coalitions and the student counselors their capability and capacity. Some of the stuff you asked about, how does Rebecca spend her day? Well, she's surveying. For instance, at the last
you
meeting...
need data, right?
Oh, yeah. At the last meeting I attended, they had survey data related to the vaping issue, which I hope we'll get to this morning. There are a substantial number of kids in our schools who now regularly use the electronic nicotine delivery systems. ENDS is what they call it. That's what Department of Health is calling it. And these vaping devices are everywhere. There is a ban on those things, you know, and I guess we'll get to that. But the point I want to make here is simply that...
Get to it now.
I want to finish my point first. that pervasive, persistent funding stream has to be in place, or we will not keep and grow the capability and the capacity that this issue really demands of us. You know, and if we segue into the vaping thing, right now the survey data that Rebecca's organization is developing indicates to us that 30% or more of the senior class at Portsmouth High School have vaped in the last 30 days. Now, whether that means just once or 100 times, we're not quite sure, but it's an issue where we thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we thought we had our arms around the smoking issue. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yes.
And now it's back in a different form. The jury is out on whether or not these vapes, these electronic nicotine devices are really helpful with smoking cessation. That's what we're being told. There is no data anywhere that supports this claim. But lots and lots of kids are doing it. And So there are legislative initiatives on that front as well, related strictly to the vapes. And right now the Department of Health is in the lead on that, and they're developing some draft legislation to make some changes that will take the governor's ban that exists now and sunsets next April to the weight of law. Okay, and what the specifics are going to be are still being negotiated. The people who do run the vape shops and all that, they are at the table. So it is a negotiation and it's an exchange of views. But you know, from my narrow perspective, somehow they've gotten to our children, and that has to stop. Period.
So in addition to your work, Rebecca, the vaping thing is going to be another piece of the pie as you move along, and is that how you're going to approach this thing?
Yes, so the vaping issue is a great illustration of how coalitions work, because we have to work on a number of different levels. So we're relying on our General Assembly and our governor to create laws that help support a non-use for youth around vaping. We also need to be working with our parents and getting the information out there, because adults as well as young people just have this false impression around these devices that they're safe. It's just vapor. It's just water vapor. But the fact of the matter is, what comes out of those devices is not water vapor. It's actually an aerosol, which means in that suspended medium are tiny particulates that get into your lungs that are not supposed to be there. It's not as simple as water vapor. They're putting juice or vape juice into the devices. Those are not regulated through the FDA. We don't know for certain what is exactly in there, and the things that we do know that are in there should not be in someone's lungs. They should not be inhaled. So there's chemicals, there are oils in there that are used as a solvent to suspend those chemicals. This should not be in lungs. Parents don't necessarily know all the facts. Children, young people, students don't know the facts. They hear that it's safe. I think the conversation about whether it's a great mechanism to stop smoking, I think for the most part that ought to be a moot point. We're not talking about smokers using the device to stop smoking. We're talking about young people who are initiating the behavior with these devices. So whether it could be or not be a great way to stop smoking for those folks who are trying to quit, we're talking about people initiating the use of the product. What we know from having conversations with young people who are struggling to stop using is they are highly affected by the high levels of nicotine. They are not able to just stop. So I think for a cautionary moment for parents, if you are aware that your student is using these devices and you want them to stop immediately, get some support and advice around that, because it may be very difficult. If their process of nicotine addiction is in gear, making them stop is going to cause them some difficulty in the beginning. It's a very important thing to help them to stop, but to be aware that there's a process of weaning off of nicotine. So that's one piece of it. You have a question coming up in your mind, I can see.
I'm looking at the clock up there and making sure that we have enough time to cover everything. I'm sort of struck by the irony of years ago, marijuana was considered a gateway drug. So we declared war on that and so forth. And now we got vaping, and kids who don't smoke and don't vape suddenly say, you know, I think I'll try this and see how it feels. And what you're saying is that there's danger in that road ahead.
There is danger in the road ahead. If you try something and you realize that it's not that difficult to utilize it and get it into your system, One of the other pieces that's very important for adults to recognize, and kids already know, young people are telling us that they start with the electronic nicotine delivery systems. They are also able to utilize products that have marijuana concentrate in them. And once they are comfortable vaping, it's a very quick sidestep to then using these vape devices to deliver THC into their systems. They've wrapped it around the concept that these are safe. So if one product is safe in the device, well, the other product is probably also safe in this device. So we're seeing a crossover and an increase in young people reporting that they are vaping THC products.
And without regulation?
There's no regulation. I mean, they're packaging these things, you know, it looks like the packaging that comes with Twinkies or something, okay? They're packaging it like it's a snack, food. They're giving it these flavors because the vape all by itself, unflavored, I'm told doesn't taste that great. So you can get cherry vanilla and
sugar.
mango and all this stuff to kill the taste of what you're taking into your body. You know, and nicotine is highly addictive. We all know this.
Well, that's the evil of it, because a student who decides, I think I'll do a little youthful experimentation, is suddenly hooked.
Yeah, and you know, then you get the peer pressure as well in the schools, and it just seems like we've lost a lot of ground in the nicotine stuff. And there's medical studies out there that indicate that when you take nicotine into your body as a developing person, a young person, okay, it's changing the physical structure of your brain.
Yep.
No one has any idea what the implications of that really are. This is all new. There is no formal nicotine cessation program for someone who's vaping and wants to get off of it. You know, I mean, so it's got, right now the impetus is on the parent and the Department of Health and the school administration, the prevention communities, to cobble together some sort of solution for a kid who realizes, geez, I've made a mistake here, but I'm having trouble kicking this. Who do I turn to? There is no formalized program like there is with tobacco. I mean, the Department of Health has a person called the Tobacco Cessation Program Manager. She's paid well. She's very good. She does a great job, and she doesn't have a counterpart on the electronic cigarettes end of things.
You need more soldiers to wage an effective war. Well,
So now we're back to the money thing.
Isn't it always money?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you came on the program, and I'm so glad that you got the word out, because there are a lot of dangers lurking, and people like you sound the bell. So thanks a lot for coming, Senator Jim Seveney and Rebecca Elwell.
Thank you for having us.
That concludes our program for today. We'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.